half the time, at one point I didn't think I was gonna make it to 30. You know, and now that I made it, it's like, well, I've spent all my 20s on death row, so.
Imagine being on death row for a heinous crime you did not commit. It may sound like a nightmare, but this nightmare became the living tale of a young teenager who was taken to prison at just 19 years old and later convicted for death row. However, this case would challenge the justice system to its core, spanning over 2 decades of relentless pursuit of the truth. For 20 long years, no one believed him, and he spent his prime years behind bars. But now the unimaginable has happened. After nearly 2 decades, he has been released. This is the gripping story of Clinton Lee Young, the wrong man, on death row.
And may you stay forever young.
In the dark annals of crime, there are cases that leave us questioning the very foundations of justice. One such case involves Clinton Lee Young, a man who found himself sentenced to death for not just 1, but 2 chilling murders. The allegations against him were as disturbing as they were gruesome. In 2001, Clinton Lee Young was accused of committing 2 horrific crimes. He allegedly shot a marijuana dealer in the head during a car ride, and then, just a day later, collaborated with one of his arrested partners to abduct and kill a random motorist. The victims were 41-year-old and 52-year-old white males. But this is where things start getting murky. Before their fates became intertwined by tragedy, Young barely knew the other suspects. They were a close group of friends, seemingly inseparable. When the authorities came knocking, their loyalty was shattered, and they all pointed their fingers at Clinton as the mastermind behind the murders. Can you believe it?
JR comes from around the house and he gets kind of like real close to Doe's car while walking around, and then that's when Clinton Young shot him.
Incriminating statements flew left and right, painting a picture of Young as the guilty party. But here's the kicker. Those statements were filled with contradictions. Imagine you find yourself caught up in a web of accusations and lies. What would you do? Young, true to the code of the streets he was raised in, chose to keep his lips sealed. Silence became his shield, even as the weight of the evidence piled against him. But when he got to know that others had given statements, he knew he was in trouble. He had a decision to make.
Back, and Clint walked over to the body. I folded up the pillow and put it back over his head. I pulled the trigger again, and he ran around to the front of the car and got back in.
In a daring move, Clinton Young broke his silence and decided to talk to the police. He had a solid argument. This defense seemed to poke holes in the prosecution's case. How on earth could he have committed that first homicide, firing a fatal shot to the driver's left temple from the passenger seat? It simply defied logic.
Close, there's no way he could have just pulled it out and shot like that.
Because that's what they said. He pulled it out of his waistband, kept it there, and shot him from that point on this side of the head.
Here's another twist. He claimed that one of the other suspects, David Page, was perfectly positioned outside the car to be the real shooter. Can you believe it?
Someone fired a gun with it. And the only one who wore those gloves was Page.
Yeah.
But that's not all. Young had more to say. He also insisted that the second murder couldn't have been his doing either. It all went down because Page, his alleged partner in crime, spilled the beans to the victim about his dark and dangerous past during the abduction. The man knew too much, became a liability, and had to be silenced. Young claimed he had nothing to do with it, that the decision to kill the man was all Page's doing. Here's where it gets truly fishy. Despite the lack of convincing evidence and fishy statements from others, Clinton Young was found guilty in 2003. The jury bought the statements provided by the other suspects and turned a blind eye to the cracks in the case, condemning Young to the ultimate punishment, death.
On the back side of the witness room is the gas chamber that actually a couple of the condemned on death row are still eligible to use if they choose that method of execution. Over here, you've got the lethal injection chamber.
Locked away in Texas's notorious Polunsky unit, Clinton Lee Young endured a life of isolation and constant fear of his impending execution. Young lived in a high-security prison known as a Supermax. Death row is a special part of this prison where convicts guilty of very serious crimes wait for their execution. Just picture yourself spending years confined to a small cell, completely separated from the outside world. There's limited interaction with other people, and every day you're haunted by the knowledge that your life could abruptly end. This was the harsh reality that Young faced, locked away behind bars with no certainty about what the future held.
When you're on death row, death or thinking about death is unavoidable, you know, because it's around you all the time.
Critics argue that the conditions on death row, including isolation and uncertainty, can cause severe psychological harm. Some inmates on death row even suffer from mental illness. The toll of this punishment can be overwhelming, leading some prisoners to commit suicide. For Clinton Lee Young, every day on death row was a battle against despair, loneliness, and the knowledge that his life could be taken away. His story sheds light on the harsh realities of this system. Stay tuned for more gripping stories like Clinton's by subscribing to our channel. Just as Clinton Lee Young's execution seemed imminent in 2017, a glimmer of hope emerged that would change the course of his life. Clinton Lee Young's impending execution in 2017 took an unexpected turn when crucial evidence emerged, casting doubt on his guilt. Gunshot residue and DNA belonging to another suspect was found on a glove near the victim's body, leading to the postponement of his execution. Simultaneously, a retired deputy district attorney and a new district attorney's interview with the other suspect revealed crucial information concealed from Clinton's defense, raising concerns about his trial's fairness. As questions grew, a hearing was scheduled for 2019 to reconsider the case. However, a shocking revelation emerged. The former district attorney had served as a special legal advisor to the judge, breaching the separation of powers. The exposure of this misconduct led to the cancellation of the hearing. In September 2021, the judge ruled that Clinton's guilt and death sentence were invalid, prompting a reopening of the case. A glimmer of justice emerged, providing hope for the truth to prevail in Clinton Lee Young's extraordinary journey. As Clinton Lee Young steps out of the prison gates, a free man after more than 2 decades, a new chapter in his life begins. Will the upcoming trial bring the justice he seeks, or will he face further hurdles in his quest for exoneration?
Prosecutors are still trying to determine whether or not to retry him or to dismiss the case entirely.
In January 2022, Young was released after posting a $150,000 bond. This momentous occasion followed his transfer back to Midland County in early November, where he will await his new trial.
It's words how blessed it is to have so many people believe in me, right? And then to have my family there for me.
Developing now at 10, a Midland County man is back home tonight after spending 20 years on death row.
The journey so far has been a harrowing one for Young, who endured over 2 decades of confinement and uncertainty. But now, a glimmer of justice has emerged, breathing new life into his fight. With the upcoming trial on the horizon, Young's release marks a significant step forward in his quest for truth and justice. Young's release on a bond signifies a turning point, a beacon of hope amidst the shadows of a flawed justice system. I was on death row for over 20 years for a crime that I didn't commit, Clinton Lee Young revealed in a heartfelt telephone interview with Midland television station KMID. His words echoed with the weight of injustice and the endurance of a spirit that refused to be broken. For 20 long years, Young was confined to a small, isolated cell, completely separated from his family and unable to touch or be physically close to them. He endured the haunting presence of death, always aware that his own life could be taken away at any moment. But all that had finally changed. Yesterday was the first time I hugged my baby sister in a long time, Young shared, his voice filled with a mix of joy and emotion. The simple act of feeling the grass beneath his feet and basking in the warmth of the sun without prison bars as a barrier was nothing short of a miracle.
They track me everywhere. They like I have to keep a log right here.
Yeah.
Of everything I do.
Despite being released on bail, Clinton Lee Young's freedom remains constrained by strict conditions. One of the most challenging conditions is that he cannot live in the same area as his family. Even simple tasks like going to the supermarket are off limits to him. This constant fear of making the slightest error and being sent back to prison hangs over him like a dark cloud. Is he really free? Or is this freedom just an illusion?
I'm always gonna have this monitor hanging over me. And so that's gonna add stress to everything. Like I gotta get from point A to point B within a set amount of time. If I don't, they can violate me.
The story of Clinton Lee Young is an example of resilience, enduring hope in the face of adversity, and the tireless fight for justice. As Young starts rebuilding his life, it is difficult to understand the deep impact that his experience has left on him. The process of healing and moving forward will undoubtedly be complex. The scars of his past will require time, support, and love to overcome. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to share your thoughts. See you in the next one.